think about this today on Thanksgiving. This week, school children were taught it's a day of sharing. The Pilgrims and the Indians shared the fruits of the harvest, but that misses the point. I assume most of their teachers don't even know that thanks to sharing, the Pilgrims almost starved. George Mason University economist Russ Roberts knows the real Thanksgiving story. So, Russ, what's the real story?
Well, there's an important lesson we learned from the Pilgrims, which was when they first came to this country, they thought it'd be nice to share. So they had communal property. They had a big area that they farmed, and their idea was...
The corporation actually ordered them to share.
Yeah, we're going to work on this together, and then we'll divvy it up equally. Well, that first winter was pretty harsh, and it was cold, and a lot of them got sick. They were in a new place. But they also didn't grow much food. They didn't grow much food for two reasons. One was, if everybody's working together, there's a tendency to shirk. You say, well, let the other guy do it. I'll still get my share. Similarly, on the other end, when the stuff grew and the harvest came, some people poached. They picked the fruit. It was corn in this case, typically. They picked the corn early, thinking, I'll get a whole ear of corn if I pick it and keep it at myself in the middle of the night. Otherwise, I'm sharing it with everybody else.
I want to grab my share before the other guys
get. And get a bigger share overall as a result. So their productivity in that first year was atrocious, and Governor Bradford realized this immediately after he saw what happened, that the incentives were wrong.
Governor Bradford wrote in his diary, what must they do so they might not languish thus in misery? Now, your turn. What'd they do?
So what they did is, what Governor Bradford did is he imposed the right kind of incentives on the system, which is to say, if you produce it, you get to keep it. It's really the essence of capitalism. You work hard, you produce something, it's yours. If you shirk and you're lazy, you don't get much to keep.
And in Bradford's words, they should set corn, every man for his own particular, and so assign every family a parcel of land. And this simple change took them from near starvation to enough plenty to invite the Indians in and say, let's share.
I don't think they were celebrating Thanksgiving because they'd realized that capitalism works and communal property is a failure. I think they're just happy to be alive. And I'm sure they shared with the Indians because they were probably good people to get along with. Nothing wrong with sharing. The real lesson here is, what is the role of incentives? And in private property, as opposed to communal property, the incentives for hard work and stewardship to take care of the land and use it productively are there. With communal property, it's very weak.
Just owning your own stuff makes you work harder to take care of it. It's not really a surprise.
Yeah, the incentives are there for, as I said, to protect it.
But it just sounds wrong to people. It has the instinct is to say, that's selfish. We want equality. We want government to take care of the important things.
Well, there's a place where communal property works pretty well, and that's my family and yours. In a family situation, because we all know each other, it's much harder to shirk. It's hard to get away with it. And usually, not always, but usually we like each other. And so I don't mind working for the other person if it's somebody I love and care about. So my wife and I don't have a shirking problem. I have no problem with the garbage. She occasionally complains about it. But in general, home life is communal, small group. If we're people who interact with each other constantly, we're going to have social norms and conventions and all kinds of ways to make sure that people do the right thing. When you get into a larger setting, that's where communal property struggles and typically fails. And the great economist Hayek understood that we have this natural urge to take the socialism of the family and expand it out to the society. Because as you say, what could be better than that? Let's take this love here and make it wider, but we aren't built that way. When we tend to spread it wider, we tend to take advantage of each other, and it leads to tyranny, actually.
Well, let's look at the rainforest. I don't think of that as tyranny, but we keep hearing they're destroying the rainforest.
Yeah, they are. Because the rainforest is public property, and as a result, if you let a tree grow larger to the height it should be, if it's on your land, you capture that benefit for yourself in the form of more wood. But if you're in a public land where you can't control who's going to come after you, you can't fence it in, it's not yours to claim and take care of, the next person who comes in cuts down that tree that you decided to bypass, and they capture it. Everybody has that incentive, and as a result, the rainforest gets butchered.
And if it were to, in America, people own sections of forest,
Yep.
and the government owns forest.
Yep.
And there are more forest fires on the government-owned forest. The privately owned forest, people have more incentive to take care of their wood.
To plant more and to not cut it down early. That's the biggest problem with common property. We see it with the Pilgrims. They pick the corn early. We see it with fishing. You keep a small fish rather than throwing it back if it's not your pond. If it's an ocean, you throw it back. Someone else is going to get it. Why should you throw it back? Keep it now. If it's your pond, let it grow to the size that it should grow. But if it's publicly owned, you worry about the other poacher coming in and taking it, so you take it now as well.
So I can understand how fish farming, private ownership of the fish, would work in some inland area, but I can't see how you do it with the ocean.
Well, the ocean's got a couple issues. With migrating fish, you can't really own the property. You could own the fish. You could have a certain tagged fish potentially with electronic surveillance and other technologies. But the way that they're solving that problem with oceans is with tuna. They're building these enormous pens it's a fish farm in the ocean. It's saltwater, briny fish, and they're somewhat free. They're not free-range tuna. They're kind of caged in, but it's kind of a big cage. They get the natural exercise that makes the fish healthier and tastier. And that's one way that technology is helping convert a public area into something private with the appropriate incentives.
You say traffic would go faster if we had private roads.
Rush hour comes from the fact that there's no incentive for the owner of the road, which is all of us. It's a beautiful thing. But the owner of the road has no incentive to maximize its productivity. And as a result, we all get stuck in traffic and complain a lot.
Finally, animals, endangered animals. What should we do about that? And bear in mind that we are on Thanksgiving.
Sure.
There was no turkey shortage.
Yeah, you know, it's an amazing thing. Some animals are scarce and some animals are plentiful. We worry about animals going extinct. We worry about endangered species. Now, here's the puzzle. If you wanted to save an animal, would you encourage people to eat it or not eat it? Well, you'd think.
Don't eat it.
Don't eat it. Eating makes one less. But if you can make a profit from eating it, that creates the incentive. And if you can privatize the ownership, that creates an incentive to take care of it and grow them. And so as a result, there's plenty of turkeys, plenty of chickens, and other animals are scarce because there's no incentive, unfortunately, to take care of them.
So both humans and hawks eat chickens, but the more hawks, the fewer chickens. The more humans, the more chickens.
Yeah, that was an insight of Henry George, early economist. And he understood that this nature read in tooth and claw that when more hawks, they eat the chickens, they're just going to deplete the population if they get too numerous. But if we get numerous, more chickens. That is the power of incentives.
We then protect chickens, we breed chickens,
we
make sure we've got plenty of them.
And there's a profit to be made from growing them and taking care of them and making them healthy and eating them. If we made it illegal to sell chickens,